everyone. Welcome to today's expert session. My name is Stephen Knoop, the Tag Marshal Managing Director. To get the ball rolling, a big thank you to the PGA of Alberta, British Columbia and Ontario PGA for supporting today's event. On our panel today, we have Slade King from Golf Calgary, Steve Dayman from Granite Golf Club, and Brad Young from Saugeen Golf Club, and our host and Tag Marshal CEO and co-founder, Bodo Siva. Bodo, over to you, mate.
Thank you, Stephen. Co-founder, that is true, but co-founder is what has now been 10 years in the making. So I'm really excited to have everyone on today. Gents, how are you all this morning? I see some snow in the background there, Steve.
Yeah,
I think brilliant. So yeah, thankfully we don't have to drive anywhere to have these online sessions. That would have been a quite different challenge a few years ago. So our session today, better data, faster rounds, how on-course tech improves pace and the player experience at leading Canadian facilities. And I'm really excited about the panel we have, and it's a really nice cross-section of types of courses and also lots of experience on the management side. So gents, if you'll allow me, I will throw Brad into the ring first. Do us a favor, give us a quick introduction on your course and also a brief 1 minute how you got to be in the driving seat that you're sitting in right now.
Sure. So I'm the general manager at Saugeen Golf Club, and this will be my 7th season upcoming. And it's been quite the wild ride, especially the last 2 years. 2 seasons ago, we hosted the Canadian Senior Amateur Championship, and then last year was our 100th anniversary of the golf course. So we're kind of looking forward to having a somewhat regular season upcoming. We are a 27-hole semi-private club with roughly 670 members, as well as open to some public play, some corporate events. We're a very busy course, doing up to 440 rounds a day. And in the short window that we are open, we did almost 53,000 rounds last year. So a very, very busy place. And a little bit of history of myself. I've been in the industry for about 23, 24 years. I've been a PGA pro for 20 years. And have spent time in Manitoba as well as a few different courses in Ontario.
Fantastic. Thanks for the introduction. And yes, that is busy, but you do have 27 holes, which obviously gives you more flexibility, but also more headaches to manage, right? I want to hand over to Steve to introduce Granite Golf Course and your role.
Great, thanks, Bodo. So we're a little bit different than Brad there. We're an 18-hole private golf course located about 40 minutes north of Toronto. We have about 750 members. Probably half of that is what you consider active, somewhere between 25 to 30 rounds played. We're at our 25th anniversary was just last year, so a relatively new course, but a really, really awesome place. I've been here for 5 years now. I was at Oakdale for a couple of years prior, and then at Emerald Hills, part of Clublink Corporation prior to that.
Yeah, Steve, you took on the new job right in the middle of COVID, which obviously not an easy time, but also, as we would later learn, it has been quite a nice galvanizer for the game of golf. And there's that very distinct, here's how many rounds we used to pre-COVID 2019, and here's what we're doing now. And it's almost always 20 to 30, even 40% up. We'll talk about how busy you have become and as we go into the session. But let's give Slade King an opportunity to introduce. You are looking after very, very busy facilities indeed over in Calgary.
Yeah, thanks, Bodo. Golf Calgary, we have 6 golf courses, 5 18-hole championship, and a 9-hole par 3. So we range in green fees from $20 up to $150 at one of our facilities. Serenity, they have the picture up there, is a 36-hole facility. So we see the full gamut to customers and pace issues on the daily. I've been with Play Golf Calgary for 30 years, parking carts when I first started, and head pro, general manager, partner in the company, and now COO. But all that means is I get a different business card, but I still marshal every day. So.
I love that. And yeah, certainly climb the ladder here in golf. And yeah, very often see that with many of the managers we meet. They're really true and true golf people, right? And that's one of the things I think is awesome about the industry. And yeah, one of the things that makes it special over and above the community that comes with the game. If you'll allow me a quick introduction to Tag Marshall. So we have 25 years at Granite, 100 years at Saugeen, and we are now 10 years in the game. This will actually be our 11th now in 2026. Yeah, I think it took us probably 5 years to get to 100 customers. Now this year it'll be going on 1,000. So there has definitely been a pre and post COVID world for us. And obviously, as the market's matured and our system has improved, so has the take up. We're also getting very close now to having tracked 100 million rounds of golf. That is very exciting because our system learns from more data. But we also and primarily learn from the people that make golf happen, and much like our panelists today. And we're very blessed to be working with some of the very best managers out there, both in daily fee and private clubs. So there's your Pinehurst, Pebble Beach, the Valhalla, Shinnecock, all the way to the Orcas at St. Andrews. And I always joke if a golf course that has 470 years of golf experience sees value in technology, then yeah, so should probably all the other courses, right? And it wasn't always like that, but St. Andrews, they certainly know the value that they can drive with the program that they've installed there about 2 years ago. We also work with some of the tours. That is a different use case because obviously they travel around and they're at different course every weekend. There's a DP World Tour. We do some of the USGA and RNA amateur events and also the ARG Women's Open. I'm also some of the events with some of the Canadian sections. Yeah, just taking a quick step back. So we're now active in, I believe, 18 countries, and there's literally a longer list of partners than I could recite. But I know that when we do our monthly customer success KPI, our customer success heroes are many times former PGA pros that were sitting in your seat. And obviously, yeah, like working in golf, and they switched over to come on our team, and they're helping our partners achieve the best possible results with the program. Our Canadian CS manager is Dean Mance, who many of you guys will be familiar with. But yeah, we're always checking the performance of our clubs across the range and across the different areas, and I always see that a Canadian course is performing extraordinarily well. And I bring that down to two reasons. One is, in my experience, you're always willing to learn. And the other one is you have a very short season, right? So you're really dialing into the program. Brad, you mentioned, it's a short season. You're getting through a lot of golf, and you have to be on 100% ready from day one, and you really have to optimize every single day. And that's obviously fantastic for us because that is what we're here for, right? Okay, let me switch back to Steve. Let's start with you. Yeah, we want to understand the player experience, right? Because ultimately we're here as operators to create experiences for all the players out there, and we want to tie them very closely to the game. And also they're the ones who ultimately the most important people, right? They're our customers. What do you think are the top 3 factors that we need to get right as operators when it comes to the golfer experience?
Yeah, looking at those items, so I think everyone across the board could say that course conditioning is is most likely number one for most people. The course is what we're selling, right? I mean, we could have great food and beverage, great employees, but having a great golf course is number one. So both pace and play and tee time availability, those are the three sort of encompassing things that come to the golf course, right? Can you get on to actually enjoy the course, and are we playing at a time that is suitable to the member?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and obviously, specifically with your esteemed members, you need to make sure that they can get out there. Slade, from your point of view, you guys do a couple of 100,000 rounds a season, all the way, like you mentioned, from $25 to 150. What would you feel matters most here, if you had to pick three?
If I had to pick three, course conditioning, obviously value cost is a big factor in choosing the golf course, and playing partners is important to how your day went and if you're going to play with those guys again. But we really take the focus, Bodo, that pace of play can ruin all that the fastest. So you
Yeah.
put so much work and effort into all those other items to dial it in, and all of a sudden a group tees off and there's three groups on the second tee. Well, they're going to quit and want a refund, and they've only been out there 8 minutes. So it's becoming one of the key factors of the overall enjoyment if they want to come back, in our opinion.
Sure, that's yeah, that's experience in play right there. Brad, what is your perspective?
Yeah, like I, pretty much agree with Steve and Slade. I mean, obviously, course conditions and the course itself plays a huge factor. But from there on, it's what you can do to attract golfers to come and to come repeatedly. And obviously, service plays a big part in that. But items like pace of play and are huge factors. Like Slade said, that if you get behind in pace of play and it's a guest first round out of your course and they have a poor experience, it's going to be very difficult to to retain that guest or have them come back out again.
100%. So the USGA has done some broad-based research here just to back all of you up, and they found that a couple of thousand, I think maybe 20,000 of players they quizzed all said course conditioning tops, and that's 84% of them. And then number two, Slade, I don't know if you ever saw the study, but it's playing partners, right? Who's in my group, and selfishly from a player's perspective, that's who I'm going to spend 4 hours with, right? I want those to be good people. And then number three is, according to players, is pace and flow of play. But from an operator standpoint, if you can focus resources on course conditioning and you can present your course well from a pace management point of view, and there's quality of play out there, that equates value, right? That's value for the members and players. The industry has certainly seen really good growth, and that growth continues, but it's obviously a bit slower because we've got a massive footprint now. We all know that COVID was a good tailwind creator, but also there's completely new ways of getting into the game now, and one of them is obviously Topgolf, and similar setups, and then also golf in popular culture has elevated live golf controversy that is now going into the next phase with Brooks Cup coming back onto the tour, and there's lots of talk around that. It's probably been good for the game ultimately, and anything that goes on Netflix really can shift culture, right? I mean, we've seen that happen with the Queen's Gambit and chess, and with chess sets sales going through the roof, and we've seen it happen in Formula One, and obviously golf is another benefactor here. So I was at the Golf Inc. Strategy Summit just a few recent months ago. I think it was in October, and the numbers here are good in terms of attracting new recruits, and the growth continues. But the next frontier for golf is retention, right? Because we need to really look after our player base and make sure that It's not a case of I'm excited to play. I've maybe come through Topgolf, and my friends have dragged me along. I got the clubs, I got a few lessons, and then within the first few years, I drop out again, right? We need to look after players and cement them into the game, because here's a stat that all need to be mindful of. 21% of public golfers get lost to the game a season. So that's US data, obviously. If you want to, one data point that you're probably familiar with is that the Canadians play more golf per capita than any other nation. So you're certainly taking the crown here. Yeah, question for Slade, just reversing the order here. Yeah, what do you have programs firstly to attract new players? And also, what do you think is key in the retention?
Yeah, the building blocks have been put in place for decades, and COVID put fuel on the fire for sure. I think every golf course has some programs for beginner golfers entering the game. NGC Oasis has some great programs bringing them in, but those building blocks with female players, with juniors, beginners, all that stuff has been laid. So yeah, the fuel on the fire, and you add to the fact we're experiential economy now and selfie economy with social media, and then influencers and golf's cool, and you got people watching golf on Instagram and TikTok every single day who've never even hit a ball. And then if they want to decide to hit a ball, there's easy ways to do that. So I think just all this stuff kind of piled together and made golf cool again. And COVID was the catalyst for it. But like you say, retention is key now, and as long as we don't mess it up, that's kind of what we talk about in our meetings. How can we mess this
Yeah.
up, and let's not do that, and come up with plans to avoid those kind of things. And on this topic, pace of play is one of those big ways you can mess this up. If every golfer goes and plays a 6-hour round, they're going to stop playing golf.
Sure.
So everybody has to take responsibility for that and make sure we're delivering every day.
Yeah, that's fair. And also, like with that next generation golfer coming in, that's your 18 to 36-year-olds younger, right? They attention span's a bit shorter. They grew up on devices, and also they're used to the DoorDash, the Amazon Prime, the same-day delivery. Maybe the what used to make golf attractive is, well, take your time and play as often as you can, is maybe not quite aligned with how that
Well, there's a bit of a
generation.
pushback on that technology, and a quote I heard yesterday from my partner, and I can't remember where he heard it, but he used the term analog. Golf is an analog sport,
Hmm?
and there is some pushback, and where younger generation are saying, "I want to go out and they're going to have their phone and have a bit of a hybrid experience,
Yeah.
and they're going to want to know their yardages and bring their lasers and that kind of stuff, but at the same time, they're enjoying nature again and socializing with friends again." So.
Very true. And there is also a flex in, I'm going to leave my phone in the locker room. I'm not available for 4 hours, right? Steve, in your world, obviously, the recruiting of players and retention, the timelines are a bit different to the daily fee space. Do you have any programs, and also how do you make sure that you get more ladies to join the club?
Yeah, we're also very similar, right? There's the attraction of members is a little bit of like, we're lucky because we're affiliated with the downtown club, so there are a lot of members at the downtown Granite Club that say, "Hey, come on up and join." So there's not a lot of people just sort of coming off the street, but when
Yeah.
we have them here, obviously the biggest thing is to get them plugged into our culture, into our environment. That's by far one of our biggest strengths. So we have a great teaching program. We have a growing ladies group. And what we find there is that once they join and there's that, trepidation to get up there and go and play on the first tee, once they are connected with the group and the social aspect, then they're making friends. They're making friends for life. And that is a huge key to retaining
Sure.
members, right? That's what we're hoping. And then, like Slade had said, pace of play is always crucial. As long as people are happy, our
100%.
environment is what we're looking for, we're good.
That belonging piece is key, and I think that's where golf really, if it's done right, and if the environment's set, you can do a fantastic job. Brad, from your side, I know you're very busy, but maybe one additional question. What is your guys thinking on the off course? Do you have any sort of range tech? Is that a consideration just to add to the attraction of the course?
Yeah, so we're actually in Orlando next week and looking at some different options to add some considerations to the range and different aspects of to the golf course. One thing that's really grown is we went from having 6 or 7 juniors, I think it was in 2020, to now we're over 100. And some different ideas with that is because we have 27 holes on a Sunday night, we can close down one of our nines and offer a family night, very very affordable to bring out your 2 parents and a couple of kids and play at your own pace and all those things, which has really helped. We're also because of again having 27 holes, we run 5 different leagues and some of which are open to the public. So we're pretty confident in our ability that once we get you here and show you what we can offer, that we can retain a very large portion, and we're getting to a point where we're nearly at a membership cap with almost getting to the point where it's difficult to fit in guest rounds just to meet our targets of what we need on our bottom line.
Well, that's a luxury problem, and well done for getting yourself to that position, right? So we'll talk a little bit about how do we ensure there's quality every time, like we're serving quality rounds every time, but also is it possible to find more capacity, and obviously what's the bottom line impact. But let me share a little bit more research here on what really matters to the players. So there was another broad-based study done by the University of Wisconsin. They have a customer experience study program, and they also have a golf management program. So one of the profs there is Christina Skunova, and she wears the researcher hat, the prof hat, but she's also the head of golf operations at Erin Hills. Incidentally, that's our customer number 1 of all time. So we've been working with them for a decade. And that team has done, I think it was an 18-month study with the USGA, and they tried to find out what are those experience factors that matter over and above the obvious, right? They wanted to know, firstly, how many factors are there in a player experience, how many touch points, and which ones float to the top and really delight players, and which ones are right at the bottom in terms of it frustrates players to no end. And then as managers, we need to understand what are we going to invest in, right? Firstly, to not get it wrong, but also to really get it right, because there's quite a few things that are just neutral, and whether it's fantastic or middle of the road, players don't really mind. But what they found is that the absolute worst ranking in terms of what they call perfect frustrator, which is a very researchy way of putting this, is corrective pace of play actions, right? That is the traditional, the ranger comes over and says, hey guys, you're slow, like Grant, get on with it, right? And players don't want to hear that. They want to hear they're slow and they will always fight. And it really kills an experience. And players will also find 100 reasons why it's not their fault, right? Really difficult. Nobody wants to be called slow. On the flip side, other people's speed. So if other people are holding me up, that's equally as frustrating. You can see it's minus 1,000. That's as bad as it gets. All these thousands of players were quizzed agree that's the worst to happen on a golf course. So that's a conundrum, right? Because they're like, well, manage it so that I don't get held up, but don't talk to me and tell me I'm slow, right? So on the flip side, etiquette and friendliness of the Ranger Marshall Play Assistant is the highest ranking delight factor. So the single biggest thing that makes people's day is if that interaction is friendly and constructive, and that's completely polar opposite to corrective pace of play actions. You can see that as asymmetry there. And that is even higher ranking than conditioning, right? And then very close to that, somewhere in the top 10 is information provided about pace of play, expectations, scorecard, golf card starter, just communication around it. And this is, again, correlated to other people's pace, right? Other people's speed. Because I think as a player, I'm not the slow one, but I want there to be information and a competency so that the guys in front of me stay well ahead and don't hold me up, right? So those are intrinsically linked. And it's, yeah, we need to really be mindful how that impacts the player experience and all of the effort we've put into conditioning, our team service levels, fantastic grill and cold beer and whatever it is, that all goes out the window if corrective pace play action happens and other people's speed. Yeah, so I want to just invite Brad here, just briefly. You've obviously learned along the way. There was also a time before technology that things needed to be managed. Are you surprised at all that this is so polar? And yeah, what's one of the things that you are teaching your team to get right around this?
Well, I think just to your point, Bodo, that that first touch point is so key. I mean, you think about when you go to a restaurant, and if you're greeted poorly, and long wait times, all those things, and no matter how good the food is, from that point on, when you start any experience with the wrong impersonate or image of the place, instead of enjoying yourself, the golf course, you tend to start looking for issues with the course. Maybe a bunker wasn't right, or things like that. Whereas if that first tee host can start your round off phenomenally, then you typically let some things slide if they're maybe not up to speed on that given day. But I mean, in terms of the data itself, it's fantastic for us, right? Because we had a picture of how long each hole should take on our golf course, and because of the data, we can go back and say, oh, you know what? We thought maybe that hole was a little bit easier and faster to play, but it turns out it's not, and vice versa for the harder holes that maybe are a little bit faster. But it also allows us to keep our team on things and to keep the golfers themselves honest. We know golfers can embellish a few different things throughout the golf course, and saying that rounds took 5 hours, and we have all the data now, so it allows us even on a hole, we could say, yeah, the group in front of you, they took 20 minutes on that hole when they should have been 14, but we know that it's a difficult hole, or they ran into some trouble, but we also know that the following hole is a faster hole that they'll catch up on pace of play, and again, when you have that data in front of you, it's so much easier to have that conversation with the golfer, because at the end of the day, they can't embellish everything when you got the facts right in front of you.
Got you. So I'm hearing a key term here, that's data, right? Because we're seeing how emotional pace can be for players, and when people are emotional, they're not necessarily logical, right? So then we see this very often. Perception becomes reality, right? Maybe a quick question for you here, Steve. Do you even have marshals still, or how do you make sure that your players are looked after?
Right. So a couple of years ago, when our general manager and head professional decided to look at something like Tag Marshal, the idea was partly based on board communication, and at some point it was our pace of play is slow, and so there were a few different factors we were looking to, just like Brad was saying, to create some real data, because again, it's 4.5 hours what they say, but really we believe that it was 4 hours and 5 minutes. So getting the real data to decide, do we have a pace of play problem, or is it, like you'd said earlier, a fast play problem? Who knows? So getting that data is key. Also for our scorecards, for Golf Genius, for anything that has any type of statistical numbers for our pace, we wanted to make sure that those were correct, as our original hole by holes were just essentially made up, right? It's a par 5, 15 minutes. It's a par 3, it's 9 minutes. So having 2 years worth of data to say, yes, this is now our actual pace of play for each of these holes is key. And then to your question there about Marshall's play coordinators, that was the other factor, which is how can we still have them on the course, but redistribute their hours into something that's productive for the feel of the environment. So looking at those three things, we still do have our play coordinators there, essentially our starters, and then they'll take turns going for a drive because now we have a nice iPad that shows the entire course. They know where everybody is. So we've been able to reduce the amount of hours out on the course, redirect those hours to our front service staff, and create the proper experience we're looking for.
Yeah, that's great to hear, and I'm excited that we're going to talk about the technology in just a minute, and then we'll look in some of the actuals on the data front. But maybe two takeaways here for all of you guests that we learned really make a difference. The first one is have somebody out there, yes, but you can reframe that position much like Steve suggests. Play coordinator, play assistant sounds much better than marshal and ranger, right? And because a marshal and ranger, automatically there's pushback from the players. So reframe the position, one. And the other one is reframe your message, right? Don't train your team not to go out and say, hey guys, you're slow, get on with it, because it's always confrontational. That's exactly this point down here, corrective pace play actions. What we learned is that reframe the message and say, hey guys, you're out of position. You're 6 minutes out of position. You're half hole out of position. That is a situational analysis, right? Not a judgment on your playing ability. And the players generally can deal with that better. Obviously, it's super helpful to have real line of sight and to have data, but just as a principle, how to handle things, reframe the role, reframe the message, and you will probably get further with the players. One other set of research that comes from our friends at Players First. So Players First does literally millions of post-round sentiment surveys. They are now tied in with the NGF, the National Golf Foundation in the States, and doing huge amount of data analysis on behalf of the industry, if you will. And what they found, to the points that you have both raised here, is that players need to have certain boxes. They want to feel welcome. They want good flow and pace of play on the golf course. They want to meet somebody out on the golf course, right? Somebody to look after them, and feel like there's service and they're looked after. And that means higher restaurant visit percentage, and the Net Promoter Score shoots through the roof. So Net Promoter Score, remember, is that 0 to 10 rating that you all get asked for after you've been to a hotel or after you've flown with an airline, and they want to know how likely are you to recommend this service or whatever it is that you've just experienced. Anything that's 9 and 10 is a promoter. Anything that's in the middle is okay. They're not even going to bother. And anything that's 0 is a detractor, and that hurts business, right? So, and to that point, if players don't feel quite welcome, if there's not good flow of play on the golf course, and sometimes perception becomes reality, right? And they don't meet anyone out there who has the service mindset to really look after them, the Net Promoter Score tanks. We've effectively failed in our mission to create a good experience. Slade, you're obviously in charge of many people across the 6 golf courses. How do you make sure that the key principles are instilled in everyone? And what is your guys' strategy on the on-course staff, marshal, ranger, player assistant? How do you guys manage that at the courses?
Yeah, lots of good points, Bodo. And one thing you mentioned in the last slide is just emotion. And players can be emotional, but staff can be emotional too. So when you have a good system and strategy in place for pace, it takes that emotion down on both sides, and can de-escalate some issues. So for us, we actually lean all in on pace. We have a starter, we have a marshal from sun up to sundown. They have iPads on the course. There's a person in the pro shop that's responsible for communicating that pace with the marshal and the starter. It's about creating that culture. Like, does every staff member know if we're ahead or behind? Does every staff member know if we have problem groups of what hole they're on? That's what we're trying to reach for. And management as well, we get caught up in a million other things, and then you don't even know what's going on the golf course. So we created that culture where, it's all about data. It's all about everybody knowing and the verbiage that we use. And we still call them marshals because, personally, I think it's important because you can fluff it up all you want, but I'm there to make sure you go faster. And I love your term of out of position, and that's something we'll steal from today, Bodo, because that works really well too. But we also have on our course, we have a concierge, we call it, which is kind of a little bit different concept, which is good cop. So we have a concierge who's a good cop, and he just drives around and gives out water and bug spray and
Yeah.
sunscreen if you need it, and he's high-fiving you if you got birdies, and we have birdie chips and all that. And then we got bad cop, who's the marshal, and his focus on pace because we found their personalities can be different when you're interviewing people. Some are really good about moving pace along, and some avoid that conflict. So we're
Sure.
kind of utilizing that skill set. So you kind of package that all together, and we actually we call a pace promise to our customers where we're going to have a marshal all the time. We're going to utilize technology so that every time we talk to you, it's an accurate depiction of the course. We have ways for the customers to have feedback on how their day went, and then we're going to post all that up front on education, where they should be at every hole on the scorecard, different points along the golf course, and that kind of stuff. So.
That's brilliant. So you're talking a lot to that point about proactive communication around pace of play, right? And setting expectations, which I think is key. And we spoke about data, and we want to now know how do you actually do it, right? So the proactive pace management using data and tech. And obviously, when we conceptualized Tag Marshal, it came from an unhappy golfer experience, right? Exactly like one of you said earlier. Three groups ahead, stuck on hole 13 on a beautiful Saturday, and it's just been so slow. And you're wondering there has to be a better way to do this, right? But also realizing that Marshall's job on a traditional golf course is the most unthankful job, and it's impossible to get it right. So um, I understand that it's not a job for everyone, but again, here's where data and information makes it just a conversation, right? It takes away the emotion, and then it's just a message that gets delivered, and it's a system message. So that makes it easy. So let me quickly share how our system helps with some of these challenges. So we have a number of front-end technology options or hardware devices that deliver data into the system. It starts with walking devices. We even have a range tag that is a tracked rangefinder that we give out to caddies very often. A lot of our system is installed into golf carts, and that can be any golf cart. So that's gas, electric, any of the big three brands or other brands. We're completely agnostic, and it can be a hidden away tracker, or it can be an 8-inch or a 10-inch screen. It obviously has interactive elements to it. What these units need to do is send data to our system, and our system then analyzes and spits it out on a map, which we're going to look at just now. And also there's a lot of back-end data that help the operators make better decisions about their business, right? And ultimately here it's about how can we make sure we hold the golfers accountable, we hold our staff accountable, and we squeeze out every little incremental improvement opportunity. And then 1% here, 2 minutes here, 5 minutes here. Over time, you get huge impact for your operation, both from an efficiency standpoint, but also from a dollar standpoint. And here's a classic tag as you guys have it at Granite, and here's a screen as it's in play at Play Golf Calgary and also at Saugeen. I want to skip back to Brad here. This is what things look like on the Tag Marshal map. Everything that happens, and this is a big course, right? You can see that's 27 holes here. We've got that mapped out in different color nines. Question for you, Brad. Who have you got dialed into the system? Who looks at that on the back end, and how do they work with this live data?
Yeah, so it's mainly utilized by myself, our head professional, and our assistant professionals. And yeah, we dive into to pretty much anything we can, to be honest with you. If we have a cart path only day, in comparison to a beautiful sunny day and how that affects the pace of play and what that might look like. We could adjust tee times because of this information. We've been able to adjust tee time intervals. We're looking into additional options this year on changing tee time intervals on a daily basis and not just running with your standard 9-minute tee time interval. And the data kind of has allowed us to track this. Well, we're semi-private golf club, and we don't have the tags in every group. There's typically a card of ours that goes out, nearly every group or every other group. So it allows us to, to still track that information properly to use that data for big decisions like ours. So yeah, it's a great tool for us just to enhance what we do. Try for our superintendent, not try to add too many more rounds. It obviously becomes difficult when we're the daily numbers are in excess of 440 for his job to.
Yeah.
It can become very difficult at that point. But yeah, there's some great information. A lot of our guest play are done in the afternoon, so we know that maybe those tee time intervals can shift from 9 minutes to 10 minutes, and then we can go as low as 7 minutes when we have member rounds that typically are being played.
Yeah, you mentioned the super. We all know who the real heroes are at the golf courses, but we're excited to talk about the variable intervals in just a minute, and the economic impact that has. So just you may have seen that we have. Let me just jump back here. Obviously, a number of I think it's 25 or so integrations where we're integrating with the going tee sheets, and we want to, as much as possible, automate how that tee sheet data pulls onto the map. So in this case, you have here group number 33. That is a delaying group. They've got their 6 minutes out of position. They're on where are they right now? And hole number 5, and they've got a tail of 2. So 2 groups are impacted right now, and their names. So if you have any sort of repeat play members, who you're talking to. Also, you might also know that this is a first-time player, right? So it helps categorize the severity of the issue, because some players are more responsive than others, and you also can see instantly where the issues are, right? So there's most of the groups are green, everything's good. Then here's one delayer and one delayed group, and these 2 red groups are a bit out of position, but they're not impacting anyone behind them. So I can ascertain this, and so can Brad and his team within like 1 minute. Whereas if you think about how long it would take to do this with line of sight, and by the time you're from the one end to the other, the situation's completely changed again, right? So impossible task. And now there's you think of it as a Google Maps or Waze of course management, and then obviously that information feeds back onto the screen too. Somebody goes out of position by a certain threshold, they get a notification. And also the bar at the bottom here gives them their update and their pace the whole time, much like you said on the back end, over and above all the front end amenities that the GPS has. Let me jump over to Granite, because obviously you have a lot of tried and proven players out there in your membership, and sometimes they may bring guests up. Who have you got dialed in? How do you go about it in the daily management, and who delivers the message if you need to get out there?
Absolutely. So our golf shop has Tag Marshal. Essentially, we have pretty much 2 systems sitting there. So that's always viewed behind the counter. Also at our starters booth, they have a laptop. It has tee times on one and Tag Marshal right beside it, sort of dual screen. So all eyes are on the course pretty much at all times. You mentioned superintendent, so our assistant superintendent, he's also on it a lot. He uses it to jump in between groups and to do some spot work. You know, if it's watering or if it's some edging, but whatever it is, he can see where everybody is on the golf course as well. When it comes to maintaining the pace of play, that comes down to, like I said, we'll have two starters there, but one of them will go out and put on his play coordinator hat and go for a drive with the iPad so that he can see what's happening. Now, they are also the ones that are putting the names onto the Tag Marshall T sheet we use. We don't have ours integrated, so that gives our starters an opportunity to, especially for new starters, right, and new members, is learning names, having a conversation, physically typing their name in, and getting everybody onto the Tag Marshall system.
Yeah, I think that's a great point here because obviously at a private club and where there's members, you want to have that personal touch, right? And if you can extend that on the golf course, you know, hey, group number 36, that's Mr. Smith and group, then you can have that personal touch right through their journey on the golf course, including a halfway house drinks card. It all can be more personalized. Uh, Slade, obviously, you are looking potentially, you can look at any one of the golf courses you've got on the system. You're too busy to do that, but you joked earlier that sometimes you might still go out and have a conversation or be seen. Yeah, what is maybe over and above what Steve and Brad have mentioned, one or two of the takeaways of what you've learned with the live management, and how do you get your team to be accurate with it?
Yeah, no, I do on a busy Saturday. I got a good three-screen setup with multiple courses up there, having a coffee and just irritating all the staff with while I'm watching pace. But yeah, I guess like I said, I talked about culture, and it takes that time, and you need to develop that system so that you can recreate it each and every day, and everybody knows their role and they're going ahead and doing it. So yeah, just from marking interactions on the iPad for the marshals. We actually have a handwritten document when the pro shop's checking in with the marshal with their flag in times on various points on the golf course. So they're going to be writing that down so a manager can walk in, check their sheet, make sure they're doing it, see what the times are, and then double check if need be, or lend a helping hand if we're having a rough group or a tough day. So lots of times that manager is going to radio that marshal in and then go jump in the cart with them and then go back out. So that happens quite often, give them a little extra help. So yeah, it's just about creating that system that for us, that we can not only recreate every day at one course, but recreate that every day at all the courses so that our customers who play all the facilities have the same experience. So.
Yeah, I think you're making a great point, and systems obviously, and that's why you're the COO, right? That is how you think. And a lot of things you're saying make me chuckle here because I've got a COO in our business, and that's what he does, right? He checks on all the KPIs all the time and annoys people and makes sure that stuff gets done. It takes a little bit of discipline around that, right? But the nice thing about it is like everyone's on the same page. So let's jump ahead from an efficiency standpoint. If you don't mind me, I'll summarize a little bit here because Brad, you mentioned things get so busy. You have an obligation to also protect your turf. So yeah, just give us a 1 minute here on the geofencing, how that works with your setup, and also the key question here: does it do the job that your superintendent is happy with in terms of keeping players aligned and compliant?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first off, it's just unbelievably easy to go on the Tag Marshall back end and to geofence essentially anything we want to geofence. So as you can see, obviously from this screen right now, all the greens are geofence. We have another setup that the greens tees. We have an additional setup where it's cart paths only. And it does tend to work extremely well. Obviously if any carts venture outside the geofence area, then the alarm goes off and and halts them back to where they should be driving. We are fairly lenient in terms of cart paths only and things of that nature. Just again, mainly because of play and all those things. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's so easy to go on the back end and to do this, and obviously helps maintain those very high priority areas, chipping areas around the green and bunkering, things like that. Any areas of water, along with the tees or environmentally sensitive areas. Again, it could be done in minutes, so it's extremely nice.
One of your colleagues, I forget the course name, locked down their course at night and built one big geofence, and anything that moves alerts. And then, as it happened, some of their golf carts got stolen, and then they were recovered just a few hours later. Um, so yeah, helpful for that too, right? Because obviously you don't want to lose 15 golf carts at the height of your season. The other thing that's important and is that we have a history of what happened, right? So both from a pace of play standpoint, but also where the geofence breaches. And like Slade, you mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that your team logs these interactions on the golf course so you can hold them accountable. And also you have history later to go back to, hey, somebody might come in and say, hey, this was a 5-hour round, I want my money back. And you can say, well, I'll player assistant, our good cop, our bad cop, spoke to you or the group in front of you, and we actually got things back under control, and your round played in 4 hours and 12 minutes, or whatever the case may be. Yeah, maybe for you, Slade, being so busy and writing so many rounds, there are post-round complaints here or there, or maybe sometimes a card comes back with a big dent. How is it helpful to you guys to have this track map and the history?
Yeah, well, we haven't found a system yet to help with cart dents, but as far as complaints, it's critical because the first thing you do is just say, okay, someone's going to come in and say it's ridiculous, it's a 6-hour round. How many times have we heard that? And you just go right to report first and foremost, and it was 452 or something like that. So, having that information and then also going back, in your upgraded dashboard, Bodo is phenomenal where you can see when they became a delayer or when, if someone said the Marshall was mean, we weren't even behind at all. They told us to speed up a bunch of times, but there was a 4-hole gap behind us. We've heard that before a million times. And then to go back and say, well, no, you were a delayer starting on the 3rd hole and you didn't catch up. And then he talked to you on 6 and you still didn't catch up. And then he talked to you on 9. So that history is critical in dealing with them after the fact. And obviously it's a bit of a science to tell people they're wrong, and by not telling them and they're wrong at the same time, but using that data and framing that conversation and trying to save that relationship, but also kind of, presenting some factual information at the same time. So it just kind of gives you all those tools, but it doesn't solve the problem, but it gives you the tools to help you manage the situation.
Sure. Look, $150 times 4 players money back is not no money, right? So for you guys to have a tool that you can defend your day and you can defend the work that you do is important. And I hear that
Well,
you
big one, I always start the conversation of like, I can understand how it felt like 6 hours.
yes.
However,
Yeah.
it was only 452. But
Yes.
yeah.
Sure. Steve, you mentioned earlier that sometimes it's a fast play problem, right? And what we mean by that is there may be a group that's really quick and they're pushing, and they think the group ahead is slow, but meanwhile the group ahead is perfectly on pace. So how do you know what's what? So that's again where that information is key. I mentioned this earlier that having the light speeds and all of this integrated that goes and can be automated so that the moment a card goes over a trigger zone on after the first hole or any of the nines, it automatically assigns the names. So we want that to be as efficient as possible. But okay, so we've learned now that we can make sure that our operation runs better with some processes, and ultimately safeguard the player experience. And you will see this just now, but it's only a small handful of players that tend to cause a problem. So we need to get onto that quickly so we don't impact hundreds of players on any given day. But over and above the player loyalty that breeds and the value and that comes with that, there is obviously opportunity to generate revenue with the system. And I know that, yeah, Brad, you and the team have done fantastically well when it comes to utilizing corporate days and adverts. Yeah, tell us a little bit how you go about that and what the impact has been from a economic standpoint.
Sure. So with the introduction of Tag Marshall to our carts, we've been able to create a corporate membership package that has 5 separate tiers. Us being with Tag for 3 years now, I think our first year we brought in roughly $12,000 in corporate membership, where last year, our third season, now that is a little in excess of 60,000. So we've went from it being an expense on our yearly financials to it being a revenue stream. And not only that, I mean, it also allows us to partner with local businesses, and with us being a smaller community, it just creates some very, very strong relationships. But again, we went from our yearly fee and everything involved with purchasing the equipment to the goal is to get our corporate membership package in excess of $100,000 a year on our bottom line. So that's been extremely key for us. And I mean, again, just going back to the ease of doing this. I'm not exactly the most tech savvy person, but we have a marketing person that can create an ad, as you see on the screen here, very quickly, and it is so easy for me to go onto the back end and upload this ad, and I could put it pretty much any place on the golf course. So we have 27 holes. We could put it on the tee, in the fairway, around the green, essentially giving us 81 advertising opportunities in terms of corporate membership. So the long and the short of it is we built our entire corporate membership package behind the advertising ability with Tag Marshall. And as you can see from the screen here, some of the ads are just phenomenal. I'll use the beer ad, that comes on. He makes sure that, he always wants the 9th tee of each one of our 9s. So when the golfer gets to the 9th tee, they know that they're turning on to another 9 or finishing their round. And when they go into the clubhouse, that's front of mind of, well, what kind of beer am I going to have? Well, I'm going to have a cerveza because I just saw it on the 9th tee. So it's been truly fantastic. We've gotten to the point now we're having corporate membership appreciation days at the end of the year, and we're truly looking forward to the ways it can continue to grow for us.
That's brilliant to hear. So we know that this takes doing, right? Like there's obviously effort behind it. You need to get it started. So our team actually helps with that, and we do have an automated way that you can just switch on and get some programmatic ads plugged into the system that are golf relevant, and just get revenue from just saying yes, right? So there's 2 ways. You can self-manage this, put the effort in, or you can just say yes, and then we run some programmatic ads through the program.
Well,
the other
thing just to touch on too is one thing that we're going to do a lot more of this year is with this ability, advertising events that we're hosting, advertising sales and shop. I mean, there's a lot of ways that don't specifically show the revenue line item that can be greatly affected by these ads and how you utilize them properly. Again, it's literally a toggle of the mouse to turn on or off ads at any time on the back end.
Sure. Any also club related communication, right? Whether that's coaching or events, anything can go on there. But the other big lever for revenue, and we mentioned this earlier, is how do we lock in on the best possible intervals for the course. You mentioned earlier, at some point, somebody decided that our par 5 should be played in 15 minutes. But is that really what happens at this particular one? At some point, somebody decided we're going to run 10-minute intervals, 11, 12, 9, and this is how it is, right? So again, data brings opportunity here. And while the difference between 11-minute intervals and 8-minute intervals, granted, this is a slightly longer business season that you might find in Canada, but say it's a $90 average spend per player, and we're reasonably busy. So the difference is 18 tee times. Well, that sounds like 18 tee times, but the effective business impact is the one gives you 4 million baseline revenue business. The other one gives you a 6 million baseline revenue business. So 3-minute decision is worth 50% in additional revenue, right? And there's not anything you can possibly do that has that level of impact on your financials. There are not enough ads to sell to make $2 million, right? But you can dial into this, and obviously this is where the data is helpful, and it's not something you can turn on overnight. It takes a bit of time and of learning about your course, but the system will help you, as will our team and the strategies that we know work. So you might then split out your day and run different intervals, different goal times across the day, and not look at it as a one size fits all like it used to be any longer. And very quickly we can then free up a few tee times and have that incremental revenue spill into the bottom line. And that's just running our business a little bit tighter. And we want to then communicate well and align the expectation of certain players that want to play quickly with those earlier rounds, for instance, and the expectations of players that need the 11-minute interval because they're going to bring their kids. Well, let's put them at a time of day or day of the week where they can't hurt the business opportunity, right? And then everyone gets what they want. And you can really dial in some of those incremental opportunities. I need to keep us on pace here, guys, because that's the job I've been given. So data and deeper course understanding. Let me jump in here very briefly with Steve. So this is one of the back-end screens that you will have with Tag Marshal, where you've got hole by hole run time, you've got a single days, every single tee time, how it went from a pace perspective. That can be looked at over a period, could be a week, could be a month. And we want to understand how many of those groups were actually on pace or quicker or slower, and really dial in what happened in that period. How is it helpful to you with your members, your committee, your ownership? How do you use this from a reporting point of view, Steve?
So the main way that so we just created this this report just recently to give to our general manager to present to the board, so that they can literally see how we've done for the entire year, what our pace was hole by hole. All the data is out there, it's given. So there's no working off of perception. It's here's the raw data, here's what we're doing, and that's simply can say that's as effective as it can be.
And also, yeah, well done. Here's a day at the office, right? And you're bringing through a busy day with 31 groups, well over 100 players in 3 hours 51. Here's what a seasonal data spread looks like. And you can see that the early times here, 320, 344, you can allocate your faster players potentially into that segment and get them to move quicker. You can free up a bit of capacity. And again, you're bringing your entire season, April through November, through in 3 hours 53 versus a 4:05 goal time. So if I had any members, I would put this all over the clubhouse because they obviously help you achieve that, and they should be proud of it. And that certainly also be to the envy of the courses down the road where things are not always that well managed. And you can then see your day by day and your month by month. One of the things that's important, and you must excuse me speeding up here a little bit, but we want to understand the distribution of the pace, because there are quicker groups, right? But there's opportunity in that too, because we're segmenting our day to have a tighter goal time that is maybe half an hour faster than what we anticipate. We want to channel faster players there, the scratch players, the players that really want to play quickly, and they will pay happily more money for that, right? If you've got dynamic pricing, we give you a 3 hour 30 round, they say, take my money, right? And then you've got groups that obviously need a bit more time, and potentially you may want to segment your certain parts of the week where you're a bit more beginner friendly or family friendly, what have you. So the key is data helps you make these decisions right down to, is our hole by hole runtime dialed in? Where can we make improvements? And let me jump in here with, because that's Serenity is one of your courses, Slade. I know that data is everywhere when it comes to how you guys operate. Maybe just 2 sentences on, yeah, what have you guys learned around the hole by hole run times? And also, have you guys started working on tightening intervals and creating more capacity?
Yeah, I guess try to keep it short. We actually created less capacity, Bodo, because we were too tight. So we were running 8, 9 minute intervals at one of our courses. We would consistently run 4 hours, 50 minutes, which is half hour over our time par. So by actually digging into the data, thinking that we could, go to a tighter interval, we ended up going to a more interval in the afternoons on the weekend. So, but then we saw immediate 25-minute faster rounds. So we did it for one reason and it ended up being another reason, but we have happier customers, happier staff, more consistent pace of play. And over the season, we gained 25 minutes by stretching them out. And another point for the data is you use it for staff training. We report every day on morning, midday, and end of day pace. And you can actually line that up with our schedules and see if maybe certain staff members have more issues than others and might need a little bit more training or some ride-alongs or some extra reminder on systems and whatnot. So we use it for that a lot too.
And maybe let me jump back to Brad on the hole by hole runtime, and also maybe your thinking on intervals and finding more capacity where the data says you can. What is your plans into the new season?
So yeah, myself and our head professional are looking into options. I'll use the example of Monday because we are cottage country up here. Mondays is a very heavy member day. So on a day like Monday, instead of going with potentially 9 minute intervals, maybe we go 8 minute intervals, and it allows for a lot more member play on Monday, which may in turn create more guest play on a Thursday because our members had been able to get their a round of golf in. We have a very active membership as well, which makes it difficult to accommodate both sides of the guest play and revenue, along with keeping the member happy. Another day like a Saturday morning, which typically fills up very fast with members. We know that maybe on a Saturday morning we can go to 7.5, or again 8 minute tee times, and then what that does is create some additional tee times to either be filled by other members or maybe even some guest rounds where typically we couldn't fit in a guest round before, let's say, 10 o'clock in the morning, or a guest foursome. And to your point, Bodo, that one additional tee time could be $600, and if you capture that once or twice a day and on a daily basis throughout the week, what that does for your bottom line is fantastic. And then again, to Slade's point, where areas of lots of guest play, it might be like, well, you know what, we just can't keep up with 8 minutes or 9 minutes, and we have to go backwards to ensure that we create an enjoyable round of golf for everyone involved, that we know we could retain them down the road because they enjoyed their round of golf. So yeah, it's just so cool how you could dive into every bit of information to create your tee sheet on a daily basis. We all know that the easy thing to do is just, okay, here's my tee sheet for the year and over and done with. But nowadays you have to be clever if you want to continue to grow, and this allows us to do that.
Yeah, that's great to hear. One of the things that we've learned, some of our operators in Colorado, when they do corporate days or a portion of the day is corporate, they say, well, historically, your corporate day needed 4 hours and 40 minutes, where our normal time is 4 hours 20. So I'm going to book you 2 more tee times, even though you don't have the people, right? So, and the corporate days, well, we love it, of course, put it on the bill, right? So that's where they're not losing out
Yeah,
on. Yep.
it's funny you say that because we have a lot of like we do 18 to 20 corporate events a year, and we have them all labeled basically with the length of time because we have 27 holes. We're able to start members on 1-9, move them off to the open 9, and then start them in the afternoon around the tournament on the open 9 and move them on to tournament 9. But there's nothing worse than doing that and they're making their turn and the tournament still has 45 minutes to go. So we're
Yeah.
able to create kind of a profile for not only each member, but each tournament that we know that, this 144 gun last year took 5.5 hours. Well, there's no way that we're going to start opening tee times for the members based on their history. Or what we can do again is ensure that we have more player assistants out for that corporate event just to ensure that they're keeping up with what we need for our tee sheet. So again, there's just so many aspects of this that you could use to be more efficient and at the end of the day, create more revenue.
Thanks, gents. We've got two more slides, and then we are through with our round. I've got one more question here for Steve. Obviously, you've got a lot of members playing. You mentioned active 25, 30, some may play 50 rounds a year. The system allows for what we call player or member profiles, where you can really then see how do they perform. And here's one that more often than not has got pace issues, and here's one that's really quick generally. So question, how do you use this in management? And because again, this is not an easy conversation to have with a member. Why can't they have the 8 a.m. tee time on Saturday, right?
Yeah, that's a very, very difficult question. Obviously, I think we all know confronting someone on their habitual pace of play is difficult. But at a place like this, where I've mentioned before, there's a bit of a tight-knit community. When there's one or two or three people, player A, B, C are out there with these extreme and consistently extreme rounds, it's one thing to say, well, that player's always slow, versus now we can actually have a profile. They've played 35 rounds this year, 27 of them they were a delayer, didn't matter who else was in the group. It becomes very easy to pinpoint, where or who your problem areas might be. And then it can be just some private conversations about, things just habitual pace of play things. How do you play faster? How do you put your pull card at the back of the green, or reading your line before it's your turn, like a lot of things just to help people along. And so it doesn't have to become, hey, you're a bad player, to speed up, right? Like it's obviously not about that. But then our board higher ups that need to know, they can also see that data if we need to present it to them.
That's great to hear. And then it's always an opportunity to get lessons, game management improvements, right? Okay, here's our last question. And let me swing back to Slade. You obviously have been walking the walk here with Tag Marshal, getting it onto the various courses over time. Your teams are dialed in. What are the players saying, and what is the players' response? Maybe both from how do they experience the technology, but also the business end in terms of, do they love playing at your courses more or less now that you can do what you can do?
It's one of those hidden ones. I don't think anyone's ever going to write you a thank you letter or give you a Christmas present or anything for it. It's just one of those behind the scenes things that's going to stop a conflict or a confrontation. And so you're going to have happier customers, because I think Brad had mentioned earlier, when you have slow pace, you get more complaints. So there's this direct correlation to how the end of that day goes. So you end up with a higher NPS score, you end up with happier customers, and that just shows up in your T sheet filling up. And for us, we have dynamic prices, so it shows on the pricing that we're able to charge because of that experience. So yeah, I don't think it's there that someone's going to come shake your hand, but at the end of the day, it's so necessary, and it's a behind the scenes thing that we certainly get thank you from staff. They're very happy for a systemized, educated approach to it all. It really takes down the stress level, and people avoiding wanting to work on a busy Saturday because they know it's going to be nothing but pace problems, where now it becomes a lot easier day to manage for everybody all around. So.
Yeah, that's an important point, right? You want to get good people and retain them. You need to give them the opportunity to be successful. Brad, what would you add here? What are your players? How are they experiencing the system?
Yeah, so obviously the way golf is nowadays, and everyone has watches or lasers or whatever it might be, right? It allows, going back to the pace of play things, it allows our golfers that utilize our carts and GPS system to just go touch the screen. Everything is touch technology, and if they want to know how far this bunker is or the green is, or if it's a front pin, back pin, it's literally a matter of touching the screen, or water hazards or whatever. And it kind of allows them the opportunity to calculate their yardages and things like that. And with the yardages being said, we're jumping on board with some testing of your new product with the wind gauges that we could put on our flags. So we're beyond excited to give that a try in 2026. And see where that can take us. But a lot of times, and especially with us having guests, right? You don't know how far the group is in front of you, and all of a sudden that delay on the tee could be 2-3 minutes here and there, and it adds up over time, where you could literally click on the group in front of you and say, okay, they're 370 yards away, I can go ahead and hit, and it just keeps the pace flowing. And then, yeah, like I said, I mean, being able to calculate your yardages and all the hazards on the golf course, and to see the overview of the hole itself, just allows for more enjoyable round for anyone that is using one of our GPS systems.
And as you're saying, it's all incremental, right? So even making a quicker decision which beer to pick at the turn adds to speeding up play. Steve, obviously, private club, lots of members to consider. Maybe one question to you. Were there big concerns in terms of members saying, oh, we don't know if we want that, we don't want to be tracked? And then a few years down the road, would they do it again? And are they happy that you have the system in place?
Yes, I think that members in general, the idea of pace of play is something that everyone has some vested interest in. So when we rolled out that we would be using Tag Marshall and we'd be tracking each group, everybody, I think over the course of 2 years, we may have had 2 individuals who say, no, I don't want to be tracked, which is obviously very simple, just to move that tracker onto someone else's bag and within the same group. And there's something, for whatever reason, with a couple of individuals, that was an issue. But everyone across the board, it's very well received, because again, they also they know that we're invested in making sure that their experience is what they want it to be, which we want it to be, which is obviously fun and fast. So that's how it works, and it's great.
Brilliant. Well, any questions? You just show 3 hours 53 season average to your members, and everyone says well done. Thank you, gents. That was fantastic. And I know that we went a little bit over time here, but there's so many different angles, obviously 3 different operations, and we wanted to make sure that we get into the thick of it. I just wanted to quickly introduce Dean Mance, who's our customer success manager over in Alberta, and we've got Stephen Knoop, who's looking after the sales region for us, and David Hamilton's our VP of Business Development for any of the strategic opportunities. Yeah, I've really loved having you on. We could have easily had just one of you on and had a 1 hour conversation in depth. So we're grateful that we managed to get all 3 of you sharing the stage. I look forward, Brad, to seeing you down in Orlando next week, and maybe some of you who are online and joined us, come and find us and come have a chat. Gents, have a good rest of the hibernation, and then a fantastic season with fantastic weather and lots of golf, and all the best to you guys.